Caught my pregnant Sil hiding wine in her bag while freeloading at my place after her divorce. I kicked her out and now my husband and Mill are demanding I apologize or get divorced. I, 28F, have been married for 3 years, and my husband, 34M, and I have been together for 6 years including the time that we were dating. His family has always been nice to me and we've had a relatively normal relationship with its fair share of ups and downs, nothing out of the ordinary. Last year, my sister-in-law Nancy, 30F, got married to her boyfriend, but unfortunately, just within a few months of their marriage, she realized that he had already started an affair with his coworker. She caught him red-handed in their own house and was about to leave him, but he convinced her to stay. They went through a lot of couples counseling sessions and I thought they were doing well, but then about 3 months ago, we found out that they were getting a divorce. Apparently, in spite of all those therapy sessions, her husband had gone back to cheating on her in this time. There was no going back from it. So she left him and filed for divorce. It has been a really difficult time for my husband's family because unfortunately, Nancy also found out that she was pregnant about a week after she filed for divorce. That made everything even more complicated, and now along with the divorce, she also has to deal with a custody battle that she hadn't signed up for. She was probably 2 or 3 months into the pregnancy but she hadn't begun showing yet. But she's obviously really depressed and I really do sympathize with her, but that's the most that I can do. I can't exactly fight her battles for her. A week ago, she approached me and asked me if I could let her live with me because she couldn't bear to live alone in her old apartment now that her husband was gone, and she had nobody to talk to. She also said that the rent was way too high for her to be able to afford on her own, so she needed a place to crash for a couple of months. I wasn't on board with that idea for a couple of reasons, the first being that my apartment is quite swamped already. My husband and I just moved in here a couple of weeks ago and we haven't even had the time to unpack. I don't think letting another person move in here was the best idea. And the second reason is kind of personal. It's a fact that Nancy is a total slob. It's bad, her hygiene is really bad and she constantly leaves things lying around and people have to clean up after her. I'm personally kind of a neat freak and that's just not something I can deal with because it makes me feel uncomfortable and gets on my nerves. I did live with her for a couple of weeks when I first started dating my husband because my own apartment was being treated for mold and my husband was living with roommates at that point, so he arranged for me to live with Nancy for a few days. My parents don't live around here and neither do my husband's, so she was my only option and she was nasty. She would leave her clothes lying around all the time all over the house. She would leave dirty dishes in the sink for days because she was too lazy. She would barely clean her washroom and worst of all, she would expect me to live the same way and be okay with it. I was honestly disgusted, but I didn't say anything to her because she was kind enough to let me live with her, and if I had the money at the time, I would have just preferred to stay in a hotel or something. But it's been years since then, and I honestly thought that she would have changed by now. I spoke to my husband when she approached me and asked me if she could move in with me, and my husband said that he would want me to agree to it. For context, my husband is currently working in a position where he has to travel a lot. So he's only home on the weekends, and I'm the one who actually stays here. My husband said that he felt awful for his sister because she was already going through a terrible divorce and then she found out that she was pregnant. It couldn't have been easy. He made a fair point and I'm not heartless, so I agreed to let her move in with me, at least until the divorce is finalized. This was a big deal for me because letting her move in with me meant double the household chores since I could obviously not demand that a pregnant woman do the heavy lifting around the house. I could ask her to do the small stuff, like maybe folding the clothes after laundry and stuff like that, but nothing too difficult. Nevertheless, I let her move in with me, and I expected her to be a little more conscious of her living habits this time because she was living in my house. But unfortunately, she hadn't changed a bit and was still the same slob that I had feared she would be. And let alone helping me do the household chores, she ended up increasing my workload. She told me that she couldn't do anything around the house because she always felt too tired. Now, I have never been pregnant, so I don't know how it feels, but I highly doubt that anybody can ever be too tired to just simply fold laundry or maybe just keep their dirty dishes in the kitchen instead of just leaving them around the house for me to find. She was constantly snacking, and every time she had something to eat, she would use a dish and then just leave it lying there for me to find, like a demented scavenger hunt. It was annoying, and I hated having to clean up after her, do her laundry, and cook for her, while she did nothing but watch TV all day. She didn't even go to work for some reason, and when I asked her about it, she told me that she had already started her maternity leave, but that seemed really because she wasn't even showing up yet. And that's when things started getting a little fishy for me. I did my own calculations and figured that if she had been pregnant for as long as she claimed, then she was probably in her 4th month and had already entered her 2nd trimester. There should be a little bit of a bump, but there wasn't. I was willing to give her the benefit of the doubt because a lot of women don't start showing for a really long time, but I realized that she hadn't even been to the gynecologist ever since she moved in with me, and it had been a few weeks. Now I'm not exactly proud of it, and I had no proof at the time, but I started suspecting her of lying to me. She didn't look pregnant, and I don't know why, but I just got this vibe that she really wasn't pregnant and she was just claiming that she was so we would go easy on her. There is also the fact that she hadn't even mentioned anything about the custody battle, which was bound to happen if her husband knew that she was pregnant. All those things combined made me feel like she was lying, so a couple of days ago, I decided that I was going to go through her stuff and try to find something that would clear things up for me. I knew her routine and I knew that she would always take a nap around the same time every day. So one day I decided to take a day off from work and stay at home so I could go through her stuff while she was napping. When I had made sure that she was sleeping, I grabbed her bag, went into my room, and started going through her things. At first, there was nothing very suspicious among her belongings, but then I got to the bottom of her back and I found a second smaller bag. There was the sound of clinking inside, and when I brought it out and opened it, I was shocked to find several bottles of wine inside it, and some were even half finished. I'm pretty sure that pregnant women aren't allowed to drink, so she was either not pregnant at all, or she was drinking on purpose, both of which were really horrible options. So I took a bunch of pictures of that, and when she woke up from her nap, I confronted her about it. I was furious because not only had she been lying to me in order to live with me for free, but she had also blatantly betrayed her brother's trust in her by lying. I was also really mad about the fact that she had been making me do all the work around the house and avoiding all of it by using her pregnancy as an excuse. When I asked her about the bottles, she tried to tell me that she didn't even know about them until now, but I wasn't buying them. There were several nights in a row where I could hear her being awake in the room next to mine because she was quite heavy-footed, and I could hear her pacing around the room until really late. I would also occasionally hear her singing in her room, but I never really thought that she would be drunk. That thought had literally never even occurred to me, and I had never asked her about it or intruded upon her privacy. But finding the bag of wine bottles in her possession was really the last straw for me. I had been putting up with her behavior and her habits for weeks, just because she was pregnant, and I didn't want to be the kind of person who treats pregnant women with cruelty. But she had used that against me, and I couldn't let that slide. So I told her that she had to vacate the house because I couldn't let her live with me anymore, since she had been lying to me and making me work for her for weeks without even sparing a thought about how difficult it was for me. She tried to tell me that the only reason she had lied about the pregnancy was because, otherwise, she knew that I would never have agreed to let her move in with me. She confessed that she had lost her job after the divorce because she had been late for several days in a row and was falling behind at work, so her boss had to let her go. Now that she had no source of income, but still had to pay for her lawyer, she had to cut costs somewhere, so she decided to move out of her apartment and move in with me so she could save on rent and everything else, because I was the one purchasing everything and paying all the bills. So she had every intention of utilizing that to her advantage and living as a freeloader here until the divorce settlement came through, or at least until she found a job. I was shocked that she could even conceive of something so cruel and make me work like a madman all these weeks simply because she was too lazy and I told her to get out of my house. I was really upset and there was just no stopping me, so she kept trying to argue with me, but I ended up screaming at her and having a meltdown so bad that she probably got scared of me and left on her own. Then a couple of hours later, I received a call from my husband, and he was outraged that I had kicked Nancy out of the house. He told me that I had no right to do so because this was supposed to be a mutual decision since the house belonged to both of us and the rent was split equally. But I told him that was really unfair because he was not the one who was doing all the housework, since he wasn't even at home for most of the week. I was the one who was forced to do all the work while Nancy did nothing and used her pregnancy as an excuse to evade all her responsibilities. So yes, maybe we split the bills equally, but it still didn't make sense because I was the one doing most of the work. I would have to go to work, do my job, and after a long day there, I would come back to a dirty, disgusting house and I would have to do all the cleaning up and the chores that Nancy refused to do. And my husband, for some reason, expected me to coddle her and indulge her disgusting habits. I told my husband that I couldn't live with Nancy because it really felt like she had been raised in a barn and she was a total slob. She had absolutely zero concern for the people that she was living with. And that was just unacceptable. And most importantly, she had been lying to us for weeks, and I just don't know how my husband was okay with it. I would not be okay if my sister claimed to be pregnant just to get out of work and started living with me as a freeloader. It was dishonest and honestly just ethically wrong. There was nothing that my husband could say to justify that, so, instead, he started playing the sad divorcee card. He told me that she was going through a rough time in her life and his family. I was supposed to look out for her instead of being so hard on her. And I get it, I would have loved to help her out, but if she's gonna be selfish and have no concern or respect for me, then I don't see any reason for me to be kind to her. The only reason I even let her live in my house and did all the work without any complaints for the past couple of weeks was because I knew that she was going through a rough time. But she made a mockery out of my concern for her by lying to me, and there was no way around it. I tried to explain that to my husband, but he was being really stubborn and insisted that I was in the wrong and that I needed to apologize to Nancy for being so harsh and take her back in. So we got into a really bad fight, and that phone call ended abruptly without any resolution. I wasn't going to apologize to him because I didn't think I did anything wrong by kicking Nancy out of the house. She was disrespectful, she had absolutely no boundaries, and she made me work twice as hard as I needed to, just because she was too selfish and lazy to care about other people. I don't think anybody would want a person like that living with them. My husband wasn't in a position to speak about it because he didn't know half of it. He had only come back home thrice in the past couple of weeks, and he would always come back on the weekends. Whenever he would be around, Nancy would always be on her best behavior and act like the most innocent and helpful person ever. It wasn't like I hadn't noticed that, but I just chalked it up to her showing gratefulness and nothing much, but now I know that it was just an act. So her brother wouldn't suspect anything. It didn't matter though, because even after my husband found out that she had been lying about the whole pregnancy thing only to get out of work, he didn't seem to care about it. I can understand that this is his little sister that we are talking about here, but that doesn't absolve her of everything. And he also has certain responsibilities towards me, his wife. I thought it was unfair of him to demand that I apologize to Nancy and take her back in after she was the one who screwed up. Being cheated on does not give you a free to be a jerk to everyone else. That's just not how it works. So I expected my husband to understand that and get back to me within a couple of days, but that didn't happen. What did happen was that my mother-in-law reached out to me a day after my fight with my husband and told me that I was being a horrible person right now. She claimed that I was being selfish and I should really introspect, because if Nancy felt the need to lie about being pregnant just so I would help her and let her live with me, then there was clearly something wrong with me. She said that families shouldn't have to think twice before asking for help, and certainly not before offering to help, but I was the kind of selfish person who didn't care about anything or anyone beyond my own self. Nancy had told her mother all about the fight that we had and how hard I had been on her before kicking her out, which I thought was all well deserved, but she thinks that I took it too far because Nancy had just been cheated on and I should have readily offered to let her live with me instead of making such a big deal out of everything. My mother-in-law thought that it wasn't a big deal that I was doing all the work around the house alongside my job, because apparently thousands of working women all over the world do it every day, holding down the fort at home while also taking care of their family, and I wasn't special for doing it. Here's the thing though, Nancy is not my family. She's not my husband and she's not my kid, so I have literally no reason to take up that additional responsibility of looking after her. It was purely out of concern and love that I had taken her in, despite the circumstances. And she misused that to her advantage, so I don't think she deserved to live in my house after that. I told my mother-in-law that instead of lecturing me about how I should treat my family, she should probably take in her daughter and make her a better person. I was really annoyed by the fact that she was trying to make me look like the bad guy here when it was her own daughter who had been lying about being pregnant, which is a pretty big deal. So we started arguing on the phone and she told me that she was going to teach me a lesson. Then she hung up, leaving me wondering what exactly she was going to do. I'm not really scared of my in-laws because so far they have always been very nice and civil to me, but we have never had major disagreements like this yet. So this is our first big fight, and I think this is them showing their true colors to me. I didn't know what she was going to do until last night when my husband finally called me back after our fight. I thought that he was going to apologize and tell me that he had finally realized that his sister was wrong, and that he shouldn't have fought with me over her, that I did the right thing by kicking her out because she had betrayed my trust. But instead, he called me and started yelling at me for being disrespectful towards his mother. He said that I had no right to speak to her that way and that she was pissed about the tone that I had taken with her on that phone call. She had apparently told my husband that I was not fit to be part of the family anymore and had advised him to leave me before things got even worse. I didn't even know where that was coming from because, in my opinion, I think I had spoken to her the same way that she had been speaking to me on the phone call. You can't be rude to someone and expect them to be perfect to you, and her being my mother-in-law doesn't excuse anything. Her behavior was bad and I just reflected it, so if she was claiming that I had been disrespectful towards her, the opposite of that was also true. She had also been very disrespectful towards me. But my husband wasn't ready to hear it, and he said that things were getting out of hand, so I needed to apologize to his family and I needed to do it quickly. I thought that it was extremely entitled of him, and his family, to even expect me to apologize after what they had put me through. These past couple of weeks have been really difficult for me because I had to do everything on my own, all because Nancy was too lazy, and they felt like she deserved to have a maid and I was that person. I told my husband very clearly that I was not going to apologize to anybody, and when I said that, he told me that then he would be left with no option but to leave me because I was being really heartless and he couldn't let me treat his family this way. My husband and I have had fights before, but none of them have ever been this bad, and we have never ever even spoken of divorce, so this is a big deal. I hung up on him yesterday after he brought up divorce because I didn't even know what to say to that. I honestly don't think that I did anything wrong even now, but the way everybody has reacted to this is making me feel like maybe I'm the bad guy here and I don't even realize it. I have no idea what to do and this is too personal for me to share with other people. I have spoken to my parents, but they think that I should just let my husband go since it's pretty obvious that his family is more important to him than me. But they are my parents, so they're obviously going to take my side. So Ida for kicking my sister-in-law out after I found out that she had been lying to me about being pregnant? Update 1. So, it's been a couple of days since my husband told me that if I didn't apologize to him and his family, then he would have to file for a divorce. After thinking about this for a long time, I have decided that I'm okay with it. I can't help this and this is out of my control now. If my husband wants to prioritize his family over me, even though they're wrong, then that's on him. I can't think of a single reason why anyone in his position would defend his sister over me, and believe me, I have tried. I put myself in his shoes and try to think what I would do in his situation, but I just can't bring myself to defend Nancy because she's just so wrong. She knew all along that what she was doing was messed up. She was making me slog on purpose. She knew that I would always be tired when I came back home from work, and the fact that this was a new apartment and I hadn't even unpacked fully yet made everything a lot more difficult. But that didn't stop her from treating me like a housemaid and making me do all the chores while she used her pregnancy as the excuse to avoid even getting up from the couch. So pardon me if I don't have any sympathy for her. My husband and I haven't spoken since our last conversation, where he told me that his mother wanted him to get a divorce, and he sort of agreed with her. It's his choice, he can do whatever he wants to do and I'm not gonna stop him. I'm glad that he chose to be honest with me and tell me that he was thinking about divorce over this, because I would hate for him to show me this side once we had been married for longer and had kids or whatever. I think I dodged a bullet here, quite frankly, and I couldn't be more grateful for it. I have talked to my parents about it and they have told me that they will be putting me in touch with their lawyer. I think that even if my husband doesn't file for a divorce, I might. I don't think I can just go back to having a happy marriage with him and act like everything is alright after this. Because it's really not. His taking his family's side over mine is not okay with me. If I had been unreasonable or crazy in any capacity, then I might have thought that it was fine for him to threaten divorce over something like this. But I wasn't. They were the ones who screwed up, and instead of telling them off, he's threatening to leave me. There's nothing fair or normal about what he's doing and I don't want to be a part of this. It was insulting enough when he threatened to divorce me, only because I had kicked his sister out for literally lying to me. I'm not putting up with anything else now. So this weekend when he comes back home, he can either tell me that he's sorry and we can work this out. Or I'm leaving. There is no other way out of this. There is a very real chance that he might not even come back home for the weekend like he didn't last time because we were fighting. And in that case, I will still be filing for divorce, because then it means he's just running away from confrontation and this is not middle school. He can either own up and talk to me like a real grown-up or we can end this thing. It's going to be difficult, but it has to be done. I'm getting sick of not speaking to each other and giving each other the silent treatment. It just feels juvenile and unnecessary at this point. Update 2. So, he came back home this morning, which was a really big surprise, because I hadn't expected him to show up. But he did come back. Unfortunately, we haven't spoken yet since he hasn't taken the initiative to speak to me. It's been several hours of silent awkwardness, and both of us have been avoiding each other like the plague. If I enter a room, he leaves and he's not even looking me in the eye. But I'm going to speak to him, that's for certain, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think I'm gonna have to end it. I can't be married to a man like this, who doesn't even deem me worthy of a discussion after a fight. This is just the first time that this is happening, because before this, we have only had petty fights. But if this is how he acts, I don't need this. It's just really stupid and immature, and if he doesn't apologize soon, I don't think I can make it work with him. I have lost a lot of respect for him and his family over the past couple of weeks, and this is not making the situation any better. Update 3. Hey, guys. So I am posting this really late at night because my husband just left the house a couple of hours ago. Yeah, we were not able to work it out and we decided that it was for the best if we part ways. It was not a pleasant discussion in the slightest and there was a lot of shouting, but in the end, we were able to come to the conclusion that he would never be able to put his family second and I would never be able to put his family first. It was just that. I was the one who approached him in the evening. He tried to avoid the discussion, but I told him everything that had been on my mind for the past couple of weeks and he told me that he still didn't think that I was right. He claimed that I should have been gentle with his sister, instead of being so hard on her because she was under a lot of pressure due to the divorce and the infidelity and everything. I told him that letting her live with me was the part where I was taking it easy on her. I was the one who was doing everything for her, but she wasn't grateful for it and so she had to go. I tried to remind him that he had certain responsibilities towards me as well, since I was his family too now. But he didn't agree with that and it just turned into a crazy shouting match. When both of us had finally run out of steam, he told me that he was going to leave because he didn't think he could make it work with me, and I agreed. It's really surreal to think that this is all it took to break our marriage apart, but that's how it is. I'm going to speak to my lawyer and file for divorce in a couple of days. It's sad, but I really feel like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I think I'm gonna be fine. Thank you so much for following my story and I hope you guys pray for me.